Dr. Sarah Chun pressed her palms against the cold metal console, staring at the readouts that had just shattered everything humanity thought it knew about the universe. The massive radio telescope array at the Arecibo Successor Station had been scanning deep space for months, searching for any sign of intelligent life. What they found was far more disturbing than silence. "Play it again, Marcus," Sarah whispered to her colleague, who sat hunched over his workstation with trembling fingers. The transmission crackled to life, filling the underground facility with an otherworldly symphony of desperation. Mathematical sequences intertwined with what could only be described as screaming. The universal language of prime numbers was there, confirming intelligence, but wrapped around something that made Sarah's skin crawl with its raw terror. Marcus had spent 3 sleepless days decoding the message. His usually neat appearance had deteriorated into stubble and coffee-stained clothes. "The translation matrix is still rough, but the core message is clear," he said, his voice hoarse. "They're calling for help. Multiple species, all sending the same basic plea across dozens of star systems." Sarah moved closer to read the translation scrolling across his screen. The words made her stomach drop. "Harvest fleets approaching. Biological matter required for consumption. Technological species marked for processing. Request immediate military assistance from any capable civilization." "There's more," Marcus continued, highlighting different sections of the decoded message. "They're not just asking for help. They're warning everyone to stay away. Apparently, these harvest fleets have been systematically destroying entire galactic sectors for thousands of years." The facility's director, Dr. James Reeves, burst through the doors with a team of military personnel. His face was grim, suggesting he'd already been briefed on the preliminary findings. "How many worlds are we talking about, Sean?" Sarah pulled up the stellar cartography display. Red dots appeared across a 3-dimensional map of local space, each representing a world that had sent distress signals. 47 confirmed transmission sources. Based on the signal strength and duration, most of these civilizations have been sending these messages for weeks, some for months. Colonel Patricia Williams, the military liaison, stepped forward. Her crisp uniform and sharp features reflected years of tactical experience. "What's the estimated technological level of these species?" Marcus switched to a different analysis screen. "That's where it gets interesting, Colonel. Based on their communication methods and the complexity of their distress signals, most of these civilizations appear to be more advanced than us. They have faster-than-light communication, something we're still decades away from achieving. Yet they're losing to these harvest fleets." The weight of that revelation settled over the room like a heavy blanket. If species more advanced than humanity were being systematically destroyed, what chance did Earth have if these mysterious attackers turned their attention to the Sol system? Dr. Reeves moved to the central display, studying the pattern of distress signals. "Have we identified any response signals? Any indication that someone is actually helping these worlds?" Sarah shook her head sadly. "Nothing, sir. We've detected no military transmissions, no rescue efforts, no coordination between the threatened worlds. It's as if the entire galaxy has written them off as lost causes." Or, Colonel Williams said grimly, "Everyone capable of helping has already been harvested." Marcus pulled up a new data stream, his excitement cutting through the grim atmosphere. "Wait, there's something else. I've been analyzing the linguistic patterns in these messages, and I'm finding references to something called Deathworlders. The translation is rough, but it seems to be a classification for species that evolved on extremely hostile planets." "Hostile how?" Dr. Reeves asked. "High gravity, extreme weather, dangerous predators, frequent natural disasters. According to these messages, Deathworlder species are rare in the galaxy. Most intelligent life develops on what they call garden worlds, stable, peaceful environments with gentle climates." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she began to understand the implications. "Marcus, pull up Earth's environmental data. Cross-reference it with the hostile conditions mentioned in these transmissions." The comparison data filled the screen, and the room fell silent. Earth's gravity was nearly 3 times the galactic average. Its weather patterns were described as chaotic and unpredictable. The planet's history showed massive extinction events, ice ages, and constant geological upheaval. The biodiversity was off the charts, with predator-to-prey ratios that would be considered impossibly dangerous on most worlds. My God, Dr. Reeves breathed. According to this data, Earth qualifies as one of the most hostile environments in the local galactic community. We're not just Deathworlders, we're apex Deathworlders. Colonel Williams studied the data with growing interest. These harvest fleets might be in for a surprise if they expect to find the same kind of easy targets they've been processing. Dr. Chun, what's our response time to the nearest distress signal? Sarah quickly calculated the distances involved. The closest signal is coming from a system 47 light-years away. With our current technology, it would take us thousands of years to reach them. Not necessarily, Marcus interjected, pulling up classified research files he'd somehow accessed. The Black Budget Space Program has been developing experimental propulsion systems. Nothing official, but rumors suggest they've achieved significant breakthroughs in antimatter engines and space-time manipulation. Dr. Reeves looked at Colonel Williams with raised eyebrows. The military officer's poker face didn't slip, but she gave an almost imperceptible nod. What you're suggesting, Colonel Williams said carefully, would require resources and political will that currently don't exist. We'd be talking about humanity's first interstellar military expedition to help alien species we've never met fight an enemy we don't understand. Sarah felt something stirring in her chest, a mixture of fear and fierce determination that surprised her with its intensity. Colonel, these beings are facing extinction. They've been calling for help for months, and no one has answered. If we don't respond, who will? More importantly, Marcus added, if these harvest fleets are working their way through the galaxy systematically, Earth is eventually going to be on their list. Helping these species fight back might be our only chance of survival. The room fell quiet except for the humming of computer equipment and the distant sounds of the facility's life support systems. Outside, Sarah knew the rest of humanity was going about their daily lives, completely unaware that everything had just changed. Dr. Reeves finally spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision they were all contemplating. Colonel Williams, I need you to take this data directly to the Pentagon. Dr. Chun, Dr. Rodriguez, I want you to keep monitoring these signals and gathering as much intelligence as possible about these harvest fleets and their capabilities. As the meeting began to break up, Sarah remained at her console, staring at the red dots scattered across the stellar map. Each one represented billions of lives hanging in the balance, hoping against hope that someone, somewhere, would hear their cries for help and care enough to respond. What none of these desperate civilizations realized was that their distress calls had reached a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history fighting for survival on a planet that actively tried to kill them every single day. They had called for help from the stars, and the most dangerous predators in the known galaxy had just answered their call. The real question wasn't whether humanity would respond to these pleas for help. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity would bring to this fight 6 months after first contact with the galactic distress signals. The Sol system had transformed into something that would have been unrecognizable to observers from just a year before. Hidden manufacturing facilities across Earth's moon worked around the clock, their massive construction bays filled with ships that existed nowhere in public records. The international cooperation that had emerged in response to the crisis was unprecedented in human history. Admiral Elizabeth Kane stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed orbital command station, watching the final preparations for humanity's first interstellar military expedition. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, built in secret using technology that had been theoretical just months earlier. Its massive structure housed not just military command centers, but also xenobiology labs, cultural analysis departments, and strategic planning facilities dedicated to understanding an enemy they had never seen. Admiral, we're receiving the latest intelligence update from the monitoring stations. reported Commander David Park, approaching with a datapad that contained information no human had ever imagined they would need to process. Kane accepted the report, her weathered features reflecting decades of military service that had somehow prepared her for this impossible situation. What's the current status of the distress systems? Grim, Park replied bluntly. We've lost contact with 7 more civilizations in the past week. The patterns suggest these harvest fleets are methodical and efficient. They appear to completely strip worlds of biological matter and useful technology before moving on to the next target. Kane studied the updated galactic map on her personal display. The red zones, indicating lost civilizations, were expanding steadily, creating a clear picture of an unstoppable force moving through space like a cosmic plague. Any response from the surviving worlds to our preliminary communication attempts? That's where things get interesting, Admiral. Dr. Martinez in the Xenolinguistics Department has made significant breakthroughs in establishing two-way communication with 3 different species. Their reactions to learning about humanity have been unexpected. Kane raised an eyebrow. Unexpected how? Commander Park activated a holographic display that showed the decoded communications from their new alien contacts. Initially, they were excited to learn that someone had received their distress calls. But when our linguist provided basic information about Earth's environmental conditions and human physiology, the tone of their messages changed dramatically. The hologram showed a 3-dimensional representation of the most recent alien communication, complete with emotional context indicators that the translation software had managed to decode. Kane read the transcript with growing amazement. They're afraid of us? Kane said, noting the stress patterns embedded in the alien language structures. Not afraid exactly, but deeply concerned. According to their databases, species that evolve on high-gravity worlds with extreme predation pressures are incredibly rare in the galaxy. They call such species death-touched and apparently consider them to be inherently unstable and dangerous. Kane laughed grimly. They ask for military help and then worry when the respondents turn out to be competent warriors. What specific concerns are they expressing? Park highlighted different sections of the alien communications. Multiple issues, Admiral. First, they're shocked by our average physical strength. When our team provided basic human physical specifications, they initially thought we were describing our military enhancement programs. A baseline human is apparently stronger than the elite warriors of most galactic species. The implications of that revelation settled over Kane like a heavy weight. Humanity had always assumed that if they encountered alien life, the aliens would be more advanced and capable. The possibility that humans might be the physical powerhouses of galactic civilization was both flattering and terrifying. Second, Park continued, they're disturbed by our psychological profiles. Dr. Williams has been conducting detailed interviews with our contact species about human behavioral patterns, and the responses have been consistent across all 3 civilizations. What specifically bothers them about human psychology? Park pulled up another section of the communications. Our willingness to fight against overwhelming odds, our tendency to form strong emotional bonds with complete strangers, and our apparent inability to accept defeat even when facing certain death. According to their analysis, most galactic species have strong self-preservation instincts that prevent them from engaging in what they consider suicide missions. Kane considered this information while watching the activity in the space around the command station. Dozens of human ships moved in complex formation patterns, their crews training for combat scenarios that had never been tested in actual warfare. The vessels themselves were marvels of human engineering, combining cutting-edge technology with design principles that prioritize survivability and offensive capability over comfort or efficiency. There's more, Admiral, Park said, his voice carrying a note of excitement. The aliens have provided us with detailed intelligence about the harvest fleets. The data they've shared is illuminating. The holographic display shifted to show the structure and capabilities of the enemy forces that have been terrorizing the galaxy for millennia. Kane studied the information with professional interest, noting both strengths and potential weaknesses in the alien fleet compositions. These harvest entities appear to be completely biological, Park explained. No mechanical technology at all. They use living ships that grow rather than being built, and their entire strategy seems to be based on overwhelming numerical superiority and the consumption of defeated enemies. Kane felt a predatory smile cross her features. Biological ships means they have the same vulnerabilities as any living creature. They need food, they can be poisoned, and they can be killed. What about their tactical patterns? Extremely predictable, according to our new alien allies. The harvest fleets always use the same approach. They surround a target system with massive numbers and systematically consume everything biological. They've apparently never encountered significant resistance because most galactic species surrender immediately when faced with such overwhelming odds. Most galactic species, Kane repeated, haven't spent their entire evolutionary history fighting for survival against impossible odds. The communication board chimed with an incoming priority message. Kane activated the display to find Dr. Sarah Chun connecting from the research facility on Earth. Admiral, we've made a critical discovery, Dr. Chun announced, her excitement evident even through the secure quantum communication link. Our analysis of the harvest fleet biology has revealed something extraordinary. These creatures have never evolved to fight against species with advanced chemical weapons or biological warfare capabilities. Kane felt her pulse quicken. Explain. The harvest entities are essentially living ships, but they're also incredibly vulnerable to certain types of chemical compounds that are common in Earth's biosphere. Substances that are mildly toxic to humans would be absolutely devastating to their biological systems. Park leaned forward with interest. Dr. Chun, are you saying that humanity's history of chemical warfare research might give us a significant tactical advantage? I'm saying that humanity's entire industrial chemical complex is basically a weapons factory specifically designed to counter these harvest entities. We've been accidentally developing the perfect anti-harvest arsenal for over a century. Kane felt the pieces of a larger strategy beginning to fall into place. Humanity wouldn't just be responding to the galactic distress calls with superior physical capabilities and psychological resilience. They would be bringing weapons and tactical approaches that the harvest fleets had never encountered in their thousands of years of unopposed conquest. Dr. Chun, I want a full analysis of every chemical compound we can weaponize and mass-produce within the next 3 months. Commander Park, coordinate with the alien species to gather detailed intelligence about harvest fleet approach patterns and biological vulnerabilities. Admiral, Park said carefully, there's one more thing you should know about our alien contacts. They've been asking increasingly detailed questions about human reproduction rates and population growth patterns. Kane frowned. Why would that be relevant to our military cooperation? According to their databases, most galactic species have very low birth rates and small populations. When they learned that Earth has over 8 billion humans and that our population has been growing exponentially for centuries, they became concerned about long-term galactic stability. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on Kane. The desperate alien civilizations had called for help from the stars, and the universe had sent them a species that was not only capable of fighting their enemies, but potentially more dangerous than the threat they were trying to escape. Commander, send a message to all our alien contacts. Tell them that humanity is preparing to respond to their distress calls with a full military expedition. Also inform them that human forces operate under strict ethical guidelines, and that their concerns about human aggression are noted and understood. And if they ask for guarantees about post-war human behavior? Park asked. Kane looked out at the human fleet preparing for humanity's first interstellar war and smiled grimly. Tell them that they'll have to trust that the same species crazy enough to fight an unbeatable enemy across interstellar distances is also wise enough to know when to stop fighting. The next phase of human preparation was about to begin, and the galaxy was going to learn that Deathworlders didn't just fight differently. They thought differently, planned differently, and had no intention of following anyone's expectations about how interstellar warfare was supposed to work. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system like a pack of predators materializing from a nightmare. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the flagship UES Defiance, watching as her tactical display populated with the signatures of both the threatened alien civilization and the massive harvest fleet that had been systematically consuming their world for the past 6 days. "Admiral, we're receiving multiple communications from the surface," reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Okafor, the ship's communications officer. "The Zephyrians are confused by our arrival. They're asking if we're an advanced scout force." Kane smiled grimly as she studied the tactical situation. The harvest fleet was enormous. Hundreds of biological ships that looked more like massive sea creatures than spacecraft, each one large enough to swallow a human destroyer whole. They moved in flowing, organic patterns around the blue-green world below, their feeding tentacles already extending toward the planet's surface to begin the consumption process. Send a response to the Zephyrians, Kane ordered. Tell them that the advance force is also the main force, and that they should take cover. Things are about to get interesting. Commander Elena Vasquez, the fleet's tactical coordinator, approached with a grim expression. "Admiral, I've completed our assessment of the harvest fleet composition. We're outnumbered approximately 40-1, and some of those biological ships are larger than our entire command vessel." "Understood, Commander. What's your tactical recommendation?" Vasquez activated the holographic battle display, showing the positions of both fleets in three-dimensional space. Standard military doctrine would suggest immediate withdrawal. This is an unwinnable engagement by every conventional metric. Kane nodded thoughtfully. Good thing humans don't fight conventional wars. What do we know about their biological vulnerabilities? Dr. Chen's chemical warfare analysis has been distributed to all ships. Our weapon systems have been modified to deploy the synthesized toxin compounds that should disrupt their biological processes. However, we won't know the actual effectiveness until we engage. The bridge fell quiet as Kane contemplated their options. Around her, the crew prepared for humanity's first interstellar battle with the quiet efficiency that had characterized human military operations for centuries. These men and women had trained for this moment, but none of them truly knew what they were about to face. "Admiral," Lieutenant Commander Okafor announced, "we're receiving a communication from the Harvest Fleet. It's unusual. Put it through." The main display filled with an image that defied easy description. The creature communicating with them appeared to be a mass of writhing tentacles surrounding what might have been sensory organs. When it spoke, the translation software struggled to convert its alien concepts into human language. "Small fleet of unknown configuration," the creature began, its voice a disturbing harmony of organic sounds. "You arrive in feeding space during harvest time. Your biological matter appears dense and nutritious. Submit to consumption, and your suffering will be brief." Kane felt a cold anger settle in her stomach. These creatures spoke about the consumption of intelligent life with the casual indifference of farmers discussing livestock. "Open a channel," Kane ordered. "Channel open, Admiral." Kane stepped forward, her voice carrying the authority and menace that had made her one of humanity's most respected military leaders. "This is Admiral Elizabeth Kane of the United Earth Space Forces. You're currently engaged in the attempted genocide of the Zephyrian people. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The harvest creature's response came with what sounded suspiciously like amusement. "Small ones from unknown space. Your biological matter will be processed after current feeding cycle completion. We do not engage in communication with food sources." "Admiral," Commander Vasquez whispered, "they're moving to surround us." Standard harvest fleet tactics, according to the Zephyrian intelligence reports. Kane studied the tactical display as dozens of massive biological ships began to flow toward the human fleet like living oil. Their movement patterns were hypnotic and terrifying, lacking any resemblance to mechanical spacecraft behavior. Fleet-wide communication, Kane announced. All ships, this is Admiral Kane. You've all read the intelligence reports about these creatures. They've been consuming entire civilizations for thousands of years without ever facing real resistance. Today, they meet humanity. She paused, watching as the Harvest ships continued their encirclement maneuver, confident in their overwhelming numerical superiority. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. These creatures think they're going to consume the Zephyrians and then turn us into their next meal. Let's show them what happens when predators try to hunt apex predators. All ships, weapons free. Engage at will. The human fleet exploded in emotion with a ferocity that caught the Harvest creatures completely off guard. Instead of trying to escape the encirclement, the human ships accelerated directly toward the largest concentration of enemy vessels, their weapons systems charging with energies that had never been used in interstellar combat. The UES Defiance led the charge, its modified weapons systems unleashing streams of chemically enhanced plasma that struck the nearest Harvest ship like liquid fire. The effect was immediate and devastating. The biological vessel writhed in apparent agony as the human-designed toxins disrupted its cellular structure, causing sections of its living hull to literally dissolve. Direct hit, reported the weapons officer. Target is showing massive biological distress. Hull integrity failing across multiple sections. Around the Defiance, the rest of the human fleet engaged with tactical precision that the Harvest creatures had never encountered. Human ships moved in coordinated patterns that maximized their firepower while minimizing their exposure to enemy weapons. More importantly, they fought with a psychological intensity that was completely alien to the galactic community. Admiral, we're receiving panic communications from the Harvest fleet, Lieutenant Commander Okafor reported, her voice filled with amazement. They're calling for reinforcements and requesting tactical analysis of our weapons systems. Kane watched as another Harvest ship succumbed to human chemical weapons, its massive bulk breaking apart as its biological systems failed catastrophically. I thought they didn't communicate with food sources. Apparently, they do when the food sources start winning. The battle continued with increasing intensity as the Harvest creatures attempted to adapt to human tactical methods. Their organic ships possessed remarkable regenerative capabilities, but the human chemical weapons were specifically designed to prevent biological recovery. Ships that might have survived conventional energy weapons found themselves dissolving from within as Earth-based toxins coursed through their living systems. Commander Vasquez, status report. Kane ordered as she watched a cluster of human fighters eliminate a Harvest ship 3 times their combined mass. Remarkably positive, Admiral. We've destroyed or disabled 17 enemy vessels with minimal damage to our own fleet. The chemical weapons are proving far more effective than our most optimistic projections. What about enemy tactics? Are they adapting? Vasquez studied her tactical displays with professional interest. They're trying, but their adaptation is hampered by their psychological conditioning. According to the Zephyrian intelligence data, Harvest fleets have never faced sustained resistance. They literally don't know how to fight a real war. Kane felt a surge of pride as she watched her fleet systematically dismantling an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. The human ships moved with lethal grace, their crews executing maneuvers that would have been considered insanely dangerous by galactic standards, but were routine for humans who had grown up in Earth's unforgiving environment. Admiral, the communications officer announced, we're receiving a priority message from the Zephyrian government on the surface. Put it through. The alien voice that came through the speakers was filled with an emotion that the translation software identified as overwhelming gratitude mixed with shock. Human fleet defiance. We are witnessing unprecedented events. Harvest creatures flee from smaller force. How is this possible? Kane smiled as she watched several Harvest ships actually attempting to withdraw from the engagement, apparently unwilling to continue fighting against an enemy that fought back effectively. Tell the Zephyrians that this is how Deathworlders fight wars, she replied. We don't surrender, we don't retreat, and we don't stop until our enemies are defeated. The Harvest Fleet's attempts at withdrawal were met with human pursuit tactics that demonstrated why Earth had produced such effective predators. Human ships harried the fleeing biological vessels, preventing them from regrouping and forcing them to fight desperate individual actions that they were psychologically unprepared to handle. Admiral, we're detecting massive Harvest Fleet communications across multiple star systems, reported the intelligence officer. They're broadcasting warnings about our fleet and requesting guidance from what appears to be a central command authority. Kane felt a chill of realization. This wasn't just a local tactical victory. Humanity had just announced its presence to the entire Galactic Harvest Network, and they had done so by decisively defeating a force that had been considered invincible for thousands of years. Commander Vasquez, what's our current status? 43 enemy vessels destroyed or disabled. 8 vessels have successfully fled the system. Our casualties: minor damage to 3 ships, no personnel losses. Kane looked out at the space around Kepler 442, where the debris of Harvest ships drifted among the intact human vessels like the remains of some ancient predator that had finally met its match. Open a channel to the Zephyrians, she ordered. Your space is secure for now, Kane announced. But this was just one Harvest fleet. There will be others, and they'll be prepared for us next time. We need to discuss long-term strategy for defending your world and others like it. The response from the planet below carried a note of fierce determination that reminded Kane why humanity had decided to answer these alien distress calls in the first place. Human Admiral Kane, we pledge our resources and knowledge to your cause. The harvest time has ended. The hunting season begins 3 months after the battle at Kepler 442. The galaxy was experiencing something it hadn't seen in over 10,000 years. Hope. The victory of the human fleet had sent shockwaves through both the Harvest Network and the surviving galactic civilizations, fundamentally altering the balance of power that had existed since the beginning of recorded galactic history. Dr. Sarah Chan stood in the expanded xenobiology laboratory aboard the newly constructed Deep Space Research Station Prometheus, studying biological samples from the destroyed Harvest ships with a mixture of scientific fascination and growing concern. The samples revealed a level of biological engineering that surpassed anything in human science, but also showed disturbing evidence of a vast intelligence guiding the Harvest Network's evolution. Admiral Kane, you need to see this, Dr. Chan announced into her communication device, her voice carrying an urgency that had become increasingly common as their understanding of the enemy deepened. Kane's holographic image materialized in the laboratory, her expression showing the strain of coordinating humanity's first interstellar military campaign. What have you found, Doctor? Chen gestured to the biological analysis display, where microscopic images of Harvest ship tissue showed intricate cellular structures that defied conventional understanding of biological organization. The Harvest creatures aren't just living ships, Admiral. They're components of a vast biological network. Each ship is essentially a specialized organ in a galaxy-spanning organism. The implications of that discovery hit Kane immediately. You're saying we're not fighting individual ships or even fleets. We're fighting a single massive entity that spans multiple star systems. Exactly. And, Admiral, this network has been learning. The tissue samples from our recent encounters show rapid evolutionary adaptations specifically designed to counter our chemical weapons. The network is literally evolving defenses against human technology in real time. Kane felt a familiar chill as she processed the information. Humanity's initial advantage had been based on the Harvest Network's lack of experience with chemical warfare. If that advantage was disappearing, the strategic situation was about to become far more complicated. How long before our current weapons become ineffective? Kane asked. Chen highlighted different sections of her analysis. Based on the adaptation rate we're observing, I estimate 6 months before they develop significant resistance to our chemical compounds. possibly less if they managed to capture intact human weapons for detailed study. The communication alert chimed with an incoming priority message from the Galactic Intelligence Network that had formed in response to the human military intervention. Kane accepted the connection, and her holographic display filled with the images of 4 different alien species leaders representing worlds that had successfully defended themselves with human assistance. Admiral Kane, spoke Ambassador Thrix of the Crystalline Collective, his silicon-based physiology gleaming under artificial light. We have received disturbing intelligence from our deep space monitoring networks. The Harvest entity is mobilizing forces on a scale we have never observed. Zephyrian High Commander Vex, whose world had been the first to be saved by human intervention, activated his tactical display. Our long-range sensors detect massive biological ship construction in the Andromeda proximity regions. The numbers are unprecedented. Kane studied the intelligence data as it populated her display. The scale of the Harvest mobilization was staggering. Thousands of biological ships were being grown in hidden locations throughout the galaxy, all apparently focused on countering the unexpected human threat. "There's more, Admiral," added Captain Zorth of the Aquatic Federation, her water-filled communication chamber creating a strange visual effect as she spoke. "We've intercepted Harvest network communications that suggest they're preparing to abandon their traditional consumption patterns. Instead of harvesting individual worlds, they appear to be planning coordinated attacks on multiple systems simultaneously." Dr. Chen looked up from her analysis with alarm. "Admiral, if they're planning coordinated multi-system attacks, they're adapting to human tactical doctrine. They're learning to fight the way we fight." Kane felt the weight of command settling more heavily on her shoulders. Humanity had entered this conflict expecting to face an enemy that was large but tactically primitive. Instead, they were dealing with a galaxy-spanning intelligence that was actively learning from every encounter and adapting its strategy accordingly. "What's our current fleet status?" Kane asked her staff. Commander Elena Vasquez appeared on the communication feed from the Fleet Coordination Center. "We have successfully defended 7-star systems and are currently protecting 4 more. However, our forces are spread thin, and we're starting to see Harvest fleets using new tactics specifically designed to counter human ship movements." "New tactics?" Vasquez activated her tactical analysis display. "They're using smaller, faster vessels to probe our defenses and identify our chemical weapon deployment patterns. When we engage, they immediately withdraw and relay tactical data to larger forces. They're essentially using our own intelligence gathering methods against us." Ambassador Thrix's crystalline features shifted in what humans had learned to recognize as deep concern. "Admiral Kane, the galactic community is experiencing something unprecedented. For the first time in recorded history, multiple species are voluntarily sharing military technology and tactical information. The threat you humans have awakened is forcing evolution in galactic civilization itself." Kane found that information both encouraging and terrifying. "What kind of technology sharing are we talking about?" Zephyrian High Commander Vex highlighted several entries in his technology database. Energy shield technology from the barrier worlds, faster-than-light communication systems from the network species, advanced materials science from the crystal builders. Every species is contributing their most guarded technological secrets to support the defense effort. Dr. Chen looked up from her ongoing analysis with excitement. "Admiral, this could be the breakthrough we need. Human tactical doctrine combined with advanced alien technology might give us the edge we need to stay ahead of the Harvest Network's adaptation cycle." However, Captain Zorth warned, the Harvest entity is also accessing new resources. "Our intelligence suggests they have begun consuming uninhabited worlds purely for the biological matter needed to construct larger ship forms. They appear to be preparing for a level of warfare that exceeds anything in galactic history." Kane felt the familiar surge of determination that had driven humanity to answer the original distress calls. How long before this coordinated Harvest assault begins? Ambassador Thrix consulted his species' predictive models. Based on the construction rates we're observing and the mobilization patterns, we estimate 3 to 5 months before they're ready to launch their coordinated offensive. The implications were clear. Humanity had introduced the concept of real warfare to a galactic community that had never experienced it, and now both sides were racing to develop the capabilities needed for a conflict that would determine the future of intelligent life in the galaxy. Dr. Chun, I want crash programs developing new chemical weapons and defensive technologies. Work with our new alien allies to integrate their advanced systems with human tactical doctrine. Commander Vasquez, coordinate with the Galactic Defense Network to establish joint training programs and unified command structures. Kane paused, looking at the assembled representatives of species that had spent millennia avoiding conflict and were now preparing for total war. Ambassador Thrix, I need you to coordinate with all allied species to identify potential Harvest Network weak points. If we're facing a single galaxy-spanning organism, it must have critical nodes or control centers that we can target. Ambassador Thrix's crystalline form brightened with what humans recognized as excitement. Admiral, we have been analyzing the network communications patterns. There are indications of hierarchical command structures centered around massive biological constructs in uninhabited regions of space. Command ships, more like command worlds, Admiral. Biological constructs the size of small moons, apparently serving as central processing nodes for the Harvest Network. Kane felt the pieces of a larger strategy beginning to form. Humanity had taught the galaxy how to fight, and now the galaxy was teaching humanity how to think on a truly cosmic scale. Ladies, gentlemen, honored beings, Kane addressed the assembled alien leadership. We're about to find out if a galaxy of species working together could defeat an entity that has dominated space for thousands of years. But I want everyone to understand something about human military doctrine. She paused, her expression carrying the predatory intensity that had made humanity such effective warriors. We don't fight to survive. We fight to win. And when humans go to war, we don't stop fighting until our enemy is completely defeated. The Harvest Network made a mistake when they drew humanity into this conflict. They're about to learn that Deathworlders don't just defend, they hunt. The communication feeds filled with expressions of determination from species that had never imagined they would be planning offensive operations against a galactic-scale enemy. The universe was about to witness something entirely new. A coordinated military campaign led by apex predators and supported by the combined scientific and technological resources of dozens of advanced civilizations. The Harvest Network had awakened something it was not prepared to face, and the galaxy itself was transforming in response to the challenge. Admiral Elizabeth Kane stood on the command deck of the massive flagship UES Terra's Wrath, watching as the combined galactic fleet prepared for humanity's boldest military operation in history. The ship around her represented the fusion of human tactical thinking with alien technological advancement, a hybrid vessel that was somehow both more deadly and more beautiful than anything either species could have created alone. 18 months had passed since the first human response to the galactic distress calls, and the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The bridge around Kane housed representatives from 12 different species, all working together with an efficiency that would have been impossible without the crucible of total war to forge their cooperation. Admiral, reported Commander Zura Singh, her voice carrying the calm precision that had characterized human military communications throughout the conflict. Final Fleet status report shows 847 vessels ready for hyperspace translation. All alien technologies have been integrated and tested. Chemical weapons have been upgraded with crystalline enhancement matrices. Kane nodded, studying the tactical display that showed the target of their assault. A massive biological construct designated Harvest Prime. The entity was the size of a small moon, hidden in the gravitational shadow of a dead star system, and according to their intelligence, it served as the central coordination node for the entire Harvest Network. Dr. Chun, final assessment of the target's vulnerabilities? Kane requested. Dr. Sarah Chun, now serving as the fleet's chief xenobiology officer, activated her analysis display. Harvest Prime appears to be the original seed organism from which the entire network evolved. Our analysis suggests it's been growing for approximately 50,000 years, consuming resources from hundreds of star systems to reach its current size. The scale of what they were attempting was staggering. Humanity was preparing to assault a living entity that predated human civilization by tens of thousands of years, using a combined fleet representing species that had been enemies or strangers just months before. More importantly, Dr. Chun continued, our infiltration probes have confirmed that Harvest Prime contains the network's primary consciousness. If we can destroy it, the entire galactic harvest network should collapse into uncoordinated fragments. Ambassador Thrix of the Crystalline Collective materialized his holographic presence on the bridge, his silicon-based form reflecting the lighting and patterns that humans had learned to interpret as determination mixed with anxiety. Admiral Kane, our deep space monitoring shows massive harvest fleet movements toward our position. The network is committing everything to defend its core node. Zephyrian High Commander Vex appeared on another display, his aquatic features showing the fierce pride that had developed among species that had learned to fight alongside humans. Long-range sensors detect approximately 3,000 harvest vessels converging on this system. We will be outnumbered more than 3 to 1. Kane smiled with the predatory confidence that had become her trademark throughout the Galactic War. High Commander, when has humanity ever been concerned about being outnumbered? Besides, we're not the same species that responded to your original distress call. She was right. The humans in the combined fleet had been changed by 18 months of interstellar warfare and cultural exchange with alien civilizations. They had learned to think on galactic scales while maintaining the tactical flexibility and psychological resilience that made them such effective warriors. More importantly, they had taught their new allies to fight with human intensity while applying alien technological superiority. Fleet-wide communication, Kane announced. All ships, all species, this is Admiral Kane. 18 months ago, desperate civilizations sent distress calls into space, hoping someone would care enough to help them fight an unbeatable enemy. Today, we end the Harvest Network's 10,000-year reign of terror. The communication channels filled with responses in dozens of different languages, all expressing the same sentiment. Readiness to follow humanity into what might be the most dangerous military operation in galactic history. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. The Harvest Network believes that intelligence exists only to be consumed, that civilizations are merely resources to be processed. We're here to prove them wrong. Kane paused, looking out at the assembled fleet that represented the greatest military force ever assembled by galactic civilization. All ships, initiate hyperspace translation. Target, Harvest Prime. Mission, total destruction of enemy command and control capability. The combined fleet disappeared into hyperspace in a synchronized translation that would have been impossible without months of careful coordination between human tactical doctrine and alien navigation technology. When they emerged at the target system, they found themselves facing something that defied comprehension. Harvest Prime was a living mountain floating in space, its surface covered with organic structures that pulsed with their own internal light. Massive tentacles extended from its core, each one larger than Earth's moon, reaching toward the combined fleet with movements that suggested both intelligence and hunger. "My God," whispered Commander Singh. "It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time." "Admiral," reported the sensor officer, "we're detecting energy patterns consistent with faster-than-light communication. Harvest Prime is coordinating with the approaching harvest fleets." Kane studied the tactical situation with professional interest. The enemy had positioned themselves exactly as human intelligence had predicted, committing everything to the defense of their central node. This would be a battle with no retreats and no second chances. Dr. Chun, deploy the enhanced chemical weapons. target the larger tentacle structures first. If we can disable its coordination capability, the approaching fleets will be operating blind. The human ships opened fire with weapons that combined human chemical warfare expertise with alien energy manipulation technology. The effect on Harvest Prime was immediate and devastating. Sections of its massive surface began to writhe in apparent agony as Earth-designed toxins, enhanced with crystalline amplification matrices, spread through its biological systems. Direct hit on primary coordination node, reported the weapons officer. Target showing massive biological distress across multiple sections. But Harvest Prime was far from helpless. The ancient entity's defensive systems activated, releasing clouds of smaller biological vessels that swarmed toward the combined fleet like angry insects. Each one was the size of a human frigate, and there were thousands of them. All ships, defensive formation Gamma, Kane ordered. Alien vessels, provide shield support. Human ships, initiate close combat protocols. What followed was a battle that combined the tactical precision of human military doctrine with the technological sophistication of advanced alien civilizations. Human ships dove into the swarms of enemy vessels with suicidal courage, while alien vessels provided long-range support with weapons that could sterilize entire regions of space. Admiral, reported High Commander Vex from his flagship, the approaching Harvest fleets have arrived. We're now facing the predicted 3-to-1 odds. Kane watched as the main Harvest fleet emerged from hyperspace around them, their biological ships moving in the flowing, organic patterns that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. But something was different about their approach. They seemed hesitant, almost afraid. They've never faced coordinated resistance on this scale, Kane realized. Dr. Chun, analysis of enemy behavior patterns. Dr. Chen studied her displays with growing excitement. Admiral, the Harvest Network is experiencing something unprecedented. They're facing an enemy that not only fights back effectively, but actually coordinates multiple species in ways that their biological programming can't process. They're confused, Commander Singh observed. They literally don't know how to fight a real war. Kane felt the familiar surge of predatory satisfaction as she realized the true scope of what humanity had accomplished. They hadn't just taught the galaxy to fight. They had introduced concepts of warfare that the Harvest Network couldn't comprehend or counter. All ships, implement formation Delta 7. We're going to show these creatures what happens when apex predators coordinate their hunt. The combined fleet moved with a precision that was part human tactical doctrine and part alien technological integration. They flowed around the larger Harvest vessels like a school of predatory fish, concentrating their fire on individual targets while avoiding the enemy's attempts to surround and overwhelm them. Harvest Prime is showing critical damage to its primary coordination systems, Dr. Chen reported. If we can maintain this assault for another 20 minutes, we should be able to disrupt its connection to the network permanently. But the Harvest fleets weren't going to give them 20 minutes. The biological ships began throwing themselves at the combined fleet with desperate ferocity, apparently willing to sacrifice themselves to protect their central node. All ships, this is it, Kane announced. Final assault on Harvest Prime. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves or our allies. We're fighting for every species these creatures have consumed over the past 10,000 years. The human ships led the final assault, their enhanced chemical weapons tearing through Harvest Prime's outer defenses like acid through living tissue. Behind them, the alien vessels provided devastating support fire that lit up space with energies that had never been used in coordinated warfare. The effect on the ancient entity was catastrophic. Harvest Prime's massive form began to convulse as its internal systems failed. The tentacles that had reached toward the fleet went limp, drifting in space like the arms of a dead giant. Critical biological failure detected across all primary systems, Dr. Chen announced, her voice filled with triumph. Harvest Prime is dying. Around them, the Harvest fleet vessels suddenly stopped their coordinated attacks. Their movements became erratic and confused, like a body whose nervous system had been severed. The galaxy-spanning intelligence that had coordinated their actions for millennia was collapsing. "Admiral," reported Ambassador Thrix, "we're detecting massive communication disruptions throughout the Harvest network. The secondary nodes are losing coordination with each other." Kane watched as Harvest Prime's death throes lit up space with energies that had been building for 50,000 years. When the entity finally died, the psychic shockwave was detectable even by human sensors. "Fleet status report," Kane requested. "Minimal casualties, Admiral," Commander Singh replied. "The alien shield technologies prevented most damage to our vessels. The Harvest fleet is there just drifting. No coordination, no apparent command structure." Kane felt a weight lifting from her shoulders that she hadn't even realized she was carrying. "Open a channel to all surviving Harvest vessels." "Channel open, Admiral." "Attention Harvest fleet vessels. Your central coordination node has been destroyed. Your 10,000-year campaign of galactic genocide is over. Any vessels that attempt to continue hostile actions will be destroyed. Any vessels that wish to surrender will be granted safe passage to uninhabited systems where you can attempt to build a peaceful existence." The response from the Harvest vessels came in the form of massive biological ships simply powering down their weapons and drifting in space, apparently as lost and confused as newly hatched creatures without parental guidance. "Admiral Kane," came a communication from the Zephyrian homeworld. "This is High Counselor Tef. We are receiving reports from across the galaxy. The Harvest network has collapsed. Species that have been hiding for thousands of years are emerging from their shelters. You have saved the galaxy." Kane looked out at the debris field that had once been the most feared entity in galactic history and felt the profound satisfaction that came with a job well done. "No, High Counselor, we saved the galaxy. Humans, Zephyrians, Crystalline Collective, Aquatic Federation, and all the others. When the universe sent out a cry for help, we all answered together." Dr. Chun approached with her final analysis report. "Admiral, based on our post-battle scans, the Harvest network's collapse appears to be permanent. Without Harvest Prime's coordination, the individual ships revert to basic biological instincts. They're no longer capable of organized space travel or coordinated attacks." Kane nodded, then activated fleet-wide communications one final time. "All ships, all species, this is Admiral Kane. The Galactic Harvest Network is destroyed. The age of fear is over. Today begins the age of cooperation, exploration, and shared prosperity among all intelligent species." The communication channels filled with celebration in dozens of languages as the news spread throughout the combined fleet and across subspace to every world that had lived in terror for thousands of years. Humanity had answered the galaxy's cry for help, and in doing so had transformed both themselves and the entire galactic community. The Deathworlders who had seemed so dangerous to their new allies had become the protectors and teachers who showed the galaxy how to fight for freedom. The hunt was over. The age of galactic civilization could finally begin. Dr. Sarah Chun pressed her palms against the cold metal console, staring at the readouts that had just shattered everything humanity thought it knew about the universe. The massive radio telescope array at the Arecibo successor station had been scanning deep space for months, searching for any sign of intelligent life. What they found was far more disturbing than silence. "Play it again, Marcus," Sarah whispered to her colleague, who sat hunched over his workstation with trembling fingers. The transmission crackled to life, filling the underground facility with an otherworldly symphony of desperation. Mathematical sequences intertwined with what could only be described as screaming. The universal language of prime numbers was there, confirming intelligence, but wrapped around something that made Sarah's skin crawl with its raw terror. Marcus had spent 3 sleepless days decoding the message. His usually neat appearance had deteriorated into stubble and coffee-stained clothes. "The translation matrix is still rough, but the core message is clear," he said, his voice hoarse. "They're calling for help. Multiple species, all sending the same basic plea across dozens of star systems." Sarah moved closer to read the translation scrolling across his screen. The words made her stomach drop. Harvest fleets approaching. Biological matter required for consumption. Technological species marked for processing. Request immediate military assistance from any capable civilization. There's more, Marcus continued, highlighting different sections of the decoded message. They're not just asking for help. They're warning everyone to stay away. Apparently, these harvest fleets have been systematically destroying entire galactic sectors for thousands of years. The facility's director, Dr. James Reeves, burst through the doors with a team of military personnel. His face was grim, suggesting he'd already been briefed on the preliminary findings. How many worlds are we talking about, Chun? Sarah pulled up the stellar cartography display. Red dots appeared across a three-dimensional map of local space, each representing a world that had sent distress signals. 47 confirmed transmission sources. Based on the signal strength and duration, most of these civilizations have been sending these messages for weeks, some for months. Colonel Patricia Williams, the military liaison, stepped forward. Her crisp uniform and sharp features reflected years of tactical experience. What's the estimated technological level of these species? Marcus switched to a different analysis screen. That's where it gets interesting, Colonel. Based on their communication methods and the complexity of their distress signals, most of these civilizations appear to be more advanced than us. They have faster-than-light communication, something we're still decades away from achieving. Yet they're losing to these harvest fleets. The weight of that revelation settled over the room like a heavy blanket. If species more advanced than humanity were being systematically destroyed, what chance did Earth have if these mysterious attackers turned their attention to the Sol system? Dr. Reeves moved to the central display, studying the pattern of distress signals. Have we identified any response signals? Any indication that someone is actually helping these worlds? Sarah shook her head sadly. Nothing, sir. We've detected no military transmissions, no rescue efforts, no coordination between the threatened worlds. It's as if the entire galaxy has written them off as lost causes. Or, Colonel Williams said grimly, everyone capable of helping has already been harvested. Marcus pulled up a new data stream, his excitement cutting through the grim atmosphere. Wait, there's something else. I've been analyzing the linguistic patterns in these messages, and I'm finding references to something called Death Worlders. The translation is rough, but it seems to be a classification for species that evolved on extremely hostile planets. Hostile how? Dr. Reeves asked. High gravity, extreme weather, dangerous predators, frequent natural disasters. According to these messages, Deathworlder species are rare in the galaxy. Most intelligent life develops on what they call garden worlds, stable, peaceful environments with gentle climates. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as she began to understand the implications. Marcus, pull up Earth's environmental data. Cross-reference it with the hostile conditions mentioned in these transmissions. The comparison data filled the screen, and the room fell silent. Earth's gravity was nearly 3 times the galactic average. Its weather patterns were described as chaotic and unpredictable. The planet's history showed massive extinction events, ice ages, and constant geological upheaval. The biodiversity was off the charts, with predator-to-prey ratios that would be considered impossibly dangerous on most worlds. My God, Dr. Reeves breathed. According to this data, Earth qualifies as one of the most hostile environments in a local galactic community. We're not just Deathworlders, we're apex Deathworlders. Colonel Williams studied the data with growing interest. These harvest fleets might be in for a surprise if they expect to find the same kind of easy targets they've been processing. Dr. Chun, what's our response time to the nearest distress signal? Sarah quickly calculated the distances involved. The closest signal is coming from a system 47 light-years away. With our current technology, it would take us thousands of years to reach them. Not necessarily, Marcus interjected, pulling up classified research files he'd somehow accessed. The Black Budget Space Program has been developing experimental propulsion systems. Nothing official, but rumors suggest they've achieved significant breakthroughs in antimatter engines and space-time manipulation. Dr. Reeves looked at Colonel Williams with raised eyebrows. The military officer's poker face didn't slip, but she gave an almost imperceptible nod. What you're suggesting, Colonel Williams said carefully, would require resources and political will that currently don't exist. We'd be talking about humanity's first interstellar military expedition to help alien species we've never met fight an enemy we don't understand. Sarah felt something stirring in her chest, a mixture of fear and fierce determination that surprised her with its intensity. Colonel, these beings are facing extinction. They've been calling for help for months, and no one has answered. If we don't respond, who will? More importantly, Marcus added, if these harvest fleets are working their way through the galaxy systematically, Earth is eventually going to be on their list. Helping these species fight back might be our only chance of survival. The room fell quiet except for the humming of computer equipment and the distant sounds of the facility's life support systems. Outside, Sarah knew the rest of humanity was going about their daily lives completely unaware that everything had just changed. Dr. Reeves finally spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision they were all contemplating. Colonel Williams, I need you to take this data directly to the Pentagon. Dr. Chun, Dr. Rodriguez, I want you to keep monitoring these signals and gathering as much intelligence as possible about these harvest fleets and their capabilities. As the meeting began to break up, Sarah remained at her console, staring at the red dots scattered across the stellar map. Each one represented billions of lives hanging in the balance, hoping against hope that someone, somewhere, would hear their cries for help and care enough to respond. What none of these desperate civilizations realized was that their distress calls had reached a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history fighting for survival on a planet that actively tried to kill them every single day. They had called for help from the stars, and the most dangerous predators in the known galaxy had just answered their call. The real question wasn't whether humanity would respond to these pleas for help. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity would bring to this fight.